Welcome to Escaping from Bullshit. I'm Andrew Krutsky. The title of my speech will be The World's Bullshit Turmoil from a Capitalist Perspective. I will give this talk pretending that I am a capitalist. I am a capitalist. No, I am an entrepreneur. That sounds more innocuous. What does that mean? It means I have a business which provides services and/or I have a factory which produces widgets. In both instances, I need wage workers who will provide the services and the labor of manufacture. Also, I need a market, a place to sell my services and products. But the indispensable factor here is the workers. Where am I to get cheap workers? Well, they are everywhere in abundance. They are, as it were, a reserve army of potential workers. They are people who, without work, are basically the homeless. You say that the homeless are only a small minority. Well, yes, because once they become workers, they stop being homeless. But if they do not work or are not involved in crime and dependency on others, they become homeless. The government, which of course works for me, has set up the laws in such a way that you are mostly either homeless or you work for someone like me. And as an entrepreneur, as a business person, that is how I want things to be. My fear is that this pool of the potentially homeless, that is the pool of potential workers, in short, as Marxists call them, the proletariat, is somehow removed from me. How can this happen? The greatest danger is that the government falls into the hands of those who will institute, God forbid, an agrarian reform. Agrarian reform is a eulogistic term for giving away land to people for free. If people have access to subsistence land, then they will be very difficult or unprofitable to hire them. This is the greatest possible evil that can occur to someone like me, a capitalist. To prevent this, I will muster all the forces of government to prevent this from occurring, here or anywhere else in the world. My government must intervene in all places where there is any whisper of agrarian reform. There was danger in this occurring in Ukraine in 1918 under the anarchist Nestor Makhno, but miraculously the Bolsheviks prevented this from succeeding. Then another anarchist revolution occurred in 1936 in Spain, but thank goodness Mussolini, Hitler, and Stalin, by backing Franco, prevented this disaster also. Then in 1954 in Guatemala, the no-good Arbenz tried to get the land back from the United Fruit Company. But our CIA, under Allen Dulles, orchestrated a coup and put a stop to this nonsense. Then there was those nasty Sandinistas in Nicaragua who came to power in 1979. They too were full of agrarian reform. Well, my hero, President Reagan, though having to use illegal and brutal clandestine methods, put a stop to this danger. Unfortunately, the only place in our hemisphere where agrarian reform succeeded was Cuba. But we guaranteed this disease of Cuban agrarian reform through a series of embargoes which still exist. You say that Cuba is a small place relative to the world, but you forget that such examples are contagious, giving rise to ideas of reform or even revolution. And of course, we have to stop agrarian reform everywhere. Directly, as in Vietnam, we burned their villages and drove them into the cities, where they had to look for work or remain homeless. We I'm talking about us, the American businessmen. We helped in Tunisia to get rid of those useless villagers in East Timor. Imagine those people. They tried to live independently of the market economy. Good riddance. Talking of revolutions, all these velvet, orange, and other multicolored so-called revolutions which have happened recently have simply replaced one president by another, something not unlike voting for a new president. I, as a capitalist, I mean entrepreneur, am not bothered by this. It has little, if any, effect on my business enterprises. In fact, I am in favor of stirring up people into marches and protests. I like all this hullabaloo about racism, immigration, police profiling, and especially all this attention and preoccupation with President Trump, a Russian probe, pussy grabbing, and sexual harassment. I love it. I hope he remains in office for 4 years. Even better for 8. He is a capitalist, America's godsend. Why do I like all of this? Because it distracts people from the root of capitalism, the fact that people do not have access to free subsistence land. As long as there is no talk of agrarian reform, quarrel away and demonstrate all you will. I, on the other hand, will use the police and the military in such a way as to pretend that I am terribly frightened by all these outbreaks of violence. I am, so frightened by neo-Nazis and Muslim terrorists. Yes, I want to create some violence in the expectation of people thinking that because the police are used to quell the violence, that the protests are serious and dangerous for the government. Yes, that is what I want people to think, and I will keep them preoccupied with what to me is a distraction as I rake in some more cash.